Hi.
Silence.
Oh yeah.
But
Uh,
nice to see everyone.
I think we can give a few more minutes just for everyone else or anyone else to join. It's almost 10, so people will probably be rolling in.
In silence, especially when there's people in front of me. So I'm like, I'll just talk. You guys don't have to talk back. But no, yeah, we can give some time, definitely. It's nice to meet you, Shannon.
Nice to meet you too. So you're the one that if we give silence, you get uncomfortable with it, huh?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah. And I will just start kind of rambling, which is I'm fine with if everybody else is fine with, but yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I used to be like that. And then early in my career, I worked on a psych unit and I had to learn the skill of sitting and being okay with silence so that the other
Mhm.
person could say when and what they needed to say. So that experience taught me to like be more comfortable with quiet. Hmm.
That is a good, yeah, that's a good that's a good way to learn to kind of sit and just listen. I yeah, I think it's something I'm gonna have to learn a little bit. I mean, if there's other people that are willing to chat, so I'll start just rambling, but good
And sometimes that's
yeah.
nice too to have somebody who's willing to break the ice and get the ball
Yeah.
rolling too. So there's
Yeah.
definitely good perspectives to that as well.
And I'll definitely say, like, I'm not always like that. Like, sometimes, social battery can just kind of dwindle down. So I'm
You need
like,
somebody else to bring you out.
right. Yeah. Like, I can start it sometimes, but somebody's gonna have to kind of pull through and keep it moving. But
That's
yeah.
human.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we can still give a little time. It's only 10:01, and these always feel like they kind of run kind of fast. Like we'll get down through everything and have still 5, 10 minutes. So yeah.
That's okay. If people are, we're all busy people, so
Oh, for
things
sure.
end early. There's always plenty of other things to just fill in that next time with.
Oh, absolutely. You know.
Mhm.
But we definitely appreciate everybody making the time and especially you, Shannon. Um,
Sure,
for sure. Yeah.
sure.
I always feel like on Fridays as well,
Uh,
everything is kind of like a speed run of what
yeah,
it usually is.
yeah. That's completely okay. I don't think anyone complains about that, right?
Shannon, do you have any, or does anybody have any fun plans for the weekend?
I'm going skiing. I'm learning to ski for the first time this weekend. So I'm going up to Timber Ridge Ski Resort in Michigan. It's like southwest side of Michigan. So they have a deal through January where for $60 you can get a lesson, you can have the rental equipment and the lift for $60 each person. So I've always wanted to do it. So going there this weekend and hopefully I do not get injured. Hope I know.
Keep you in our
Close to
thoughts.
50, things like that can be like devastating maybe.
That's exciting, though. That is fun. That is a fun weekend plan.
That
Yeah.
is also just an amazing deal. I feel like I'm gonna have to check that out too.
Yeah. So you'll only have a few more days because that coupon is through January. But if you don't do it this year, I think they do it every year. So it's through like this Michigan ski program. So I
Yeah,
can send you information and you can put it off to the side and put it on your calendar for next year.
right, for a year. Um, at least also you work in, I was going to make the joke, you work in therapy
I
already.
know.
If you do get injured, you have a
Yeah.
few tricks up your sleeve.
I have resources around me. So
Tricks
yeah,
up your sleeve, people that you can get in touch
exactly.
with. Right.
The phone a
Hmm.
friend, I can do those things. Yeah.
Right.
I
Hmm.
just don't want to.
Yeah, no. It's the last thing you want to do, but you can last resort if something happens.
I know.
Mhm.
I know. The challenge is when you get close to 50 is like you can turn and all of a sudden your back is out or something like that. So this is a really risky kind of
And
thing.
then it takes, yeah, like 6 months to
Forever. Yeah.
yeah, 6 months to kind of
Yeah.
rehab it. And oh yeah,
Maybe sticking
definitely.
to the bunny hills for the first go around.
Actually, and here's the exactly. So I have no plan to do anything besides very basic things. So I think that's going to help me. But part of the reason I'm doing it this weekend is as a Christmas gift, I got a gift certificate for Boyne, which is a bigger ski resort in Michigan. And
Mhm.
that's when I was like, I don't know how to ski. And I probably need to at least try to take one lesson ahead of time and just keep it small and not feel the impulse to do something bigger all at the same time. So, my plan is to start really small on one day and then assess how I did and maybe go to the other place a different day.
Mhm.
Or I might be giving the gift certificate away.
I think,
Really like it, you may be good at it.
I know I could be like pro, maybe the next
Yeah.
Olympics. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
yeah, it's your like
Probably not.
undiscovered talent up to now.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny? But probably not.
Well, I am going to get started at least with your biography and everything, Shannon. So thank you everyone that is available to join us today, and especially Shannon for your time. This is the first Coffee with a Leader of the year, so pretty exciting. A little background on Shannon Heitmiller. She received her BS in occupational therapy from Mount Mary University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and her MHA from the University of St. Francis in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She has 25 plus years of healthcare experience and many points of view and changes in healthcare throughout that time. She started being a rehab aide, then worked up to being an occupational therapist, becoming a certified hand therapist, and working through leadership roles to her current position. Shannon currently works as the Director of Sports Medicine and Rehab Services. This includes overseeing inpatient and outpatient therapy services, athletic training, and interpreting services for the Western Indiana Division of Franciscan Health. This region of Franciscan Health encompasses two small rural hospitals in Crawfordsville and Rensselaer, if I'm pronouncing that right, and
Rensselaer.
I always hear it different ways. And then one mid-side hospital in Lafayette. And also, excuse me, 6 outpatient therapy clinics. Shannon is a collaborative leader for therapy services, sports medicine, and progressive mobility programming within Franciscan Health System. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to hear about all your experience.
Thanks.
And a quick plug before we get into kind of the meat of today's Coffee with a Leader is just ACHE of Indiana has an event with NASI, and that is coming up February 29th. It's 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It will be diversity in clinical trials. And NASI, for anybody that doesn't know, is, I believe, National Association of Healthcare. Tyler, can you help me out here with the acronym?
It's health services executives. Yeah, you're good.
Health
You were right
Services
there.
Executives. All right. Yes,
Mhm.
thank you. I
Yeah.
almost got it through.
Yeah, you were there.
But it should be very interesting. Uh, the chapters, I think this is the first, event that they're hosting together. So really something to look forward to. And again, that's February 29th. So Loop Day.
Ah, yeah.
Um, so first question for you, Shannon, is just to tell us a bit about yourself and your involvement with ACHE of Indiana.
Sure. So, kind of as you had said, I've been a director for about 8 years. that role has changed over time. Initially, it was to be a director of just the Lafayette services. And then within a year or two, progressed to also helping with the Crawfordsville services. And then within a year or two after that, it progressed to incorporating West Lafayette, Rensselaer, and Wheatfield. So I've had a lot of experience in change management and helping facilities that have operated a certain way adapt and adjust and sort of sometimes meet in the middle in what those expectations are. So, as you said, I oversee therapy services, athletic training, and then language services, which is kind of a unique fold into things. So, language services is the interpreting services for the Western Indiana hospital system. This past year, I earned my MHA, so that has been a long-term career goal. It took me a long, thank you. It took me a long time to get to the point where I had courage and time to just go forward with that. And so I was excited to finish that. And what I really liked about that process was the networking with other professionals, healthcare professionals, and just learning about health systems, health changes, things like that. So once I graduated, the opportunity to join the ACHE looked like an interesting opportunity just to continue with the networking. So I'm kind of a newish member to ACHE, but I'm excited about the networking opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you offer a unique perspective kind of coming from a clinical background and then going into that more administrative side of healthcare. So definitely, a lot of people that you can network with in this organization, and hopefully helps you out.
It does.
New and late.
Yeah, and I think that clinical background gives me the perspective of the clinical workflow and maybe the challenges as we as leaders are looking for efficiency, productivity, just all the cost, value, pull, push, and then incorporating engagement. And so I'm able to reflect back to that clinical time and see how can I blend what we have to do as leaders with the clinical piece and approach change with that mindset too, and help the clinical group understand healthcare is ever changing. The things that we are working towards change won't stop. So it's the way to stay sustainable. So looking at the best way to explain the why to someone from a clinical perspective. And that can be challenging if you don't have that clinical background. It's still possible, but I think it does give me a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. So on to the next question. Do you have any fun facts to share?
I have a couple. So one is that I've been playing pickleball for the past year. So as we talked about potential injuries earlier, that one also has a high injury rate possibility. But I'm going to be in my first tournament this at the end of next month. So I'm excited and a little anxious about it. I'm not super competitive, but I enjoy it. So we'll see how a tournament goes. The second thing is that the fun fact is that I almost wasn't an OT. My whole life growing up, I wanted to be a nurse. And then an opportunity came up my senior year of high school, and I was allowed the opportunity to work in an OT department as an OT aide. And I fell in love with the profession and changed from my plan was to go to Ball State as a nurse. And I immediately changed that and went to Mount Mary and pursued the path of OT. And it's actually been a great career. So I love the fact that just that one decision, that one change just paved the path for my life.
Yeah, I love hearing about how people got to where they are today. Everyone's, paths to their eventual careers are so unique and they're always twisting and unexpected. And I love hearing about that kind of unexpected path that you took as well. Also with pickleball, do you play like solo or with a partner or with a team? I've
So I know, I know. So I knew nothing about pickleball. I used to actually think it was just for old people. And so now I'm like, it's not for old people, although my kids will say that it is because they're pointing at me. Um, but you play with you can play singles, but you usually play with a partner. So in the concept of like doubles tennis, but the rules and some of the format is different. So that helps too, because you have another person that you're playing with. And sometimes the challenge is just trying to understand what your dynamic is and who's covering what. So if you
Yeah.
play pickleball, you will get hit by a paddle and a ball, all by accident.
But you'll have someone else to blame as long as you're
I
playing.
mean, yeah.
As far as your career, tell us about a time that has shaped you professionally.
So I have a couple. When I think about professionally, I can dig deep into the clinical side, but when I think about the leadership side of things, earlier in my leadership experience, I was asked to be involved with a zero suicide project for our health system. And at first, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll help with that. And then as soon as I realized what that actually meant, I immediately became very overwhelmed. It was a daunting project. I understood that that process meant I was going to have to ask nurses or other professionals to do more with their time than what they're already doing during their busy day, and look at policy changes, procedure changes, documentation changes. And that process was a great learning experience. It was very, at first, like I said, overwhelming and challenging, but it gave me the opportunity to sort of move outside of my therapy bubble and start collaborating with other leaders within our healthcare system, from nursing to executive leaders, and really understand what a change takes to be able to implement through a whole system, and that it isn't easy to do. And also the challenge of trying to gain support from other people outside of your leadership realm. So it might be easy to say to your own leader, your own team, this is what we're doing. But to be collaborative and work together with other leaders is a whole different skill set. And so having the opportunity to do that, I learned a lot from that. And so it was a good experience. The other experience was a little different, and it was the experience of moving one building to another building. So we had a building project of a new facility. So working through the planning, the drafting, understanding the different laws and survey needs that we had to be prepared for in a move, and then the operational side of physically moving equipment and patients and things from one side to the other was a great learning experience too. And again, the challenge of what it takes for change like that and the amount of collaboration. So really things like that, it's the collaborative lessons that are learned in the process for me.
Yes, and I think those two experiences are very great, like opportunities for learning, just in that they're system wide and also very important to Franciscan. A zero suicide initiative is something very fulfilling and easy to get behind, but then hard to actually manage as far as changes go. So
Right.
yeah, and then of course you're forced to move buildings. You can't show up to work at the old building for forever. So that's also a great, I think, opportunity to learn about change management.
Right.
Um, as far as going forward into your future, what change or impact would you like to have on the healthcare industry?
So my hope is to look at how to collaborate with other disciplines, incorporate PT, OT, speech, even athletic training services into the value-based care model, and look at, is there a way with the patient-centered medical home model, for example, to embed therapists and athletic trainers in that process, or in community-based health systems, can we look at ways to incorporate PT, OT, speech, and athletic training into those settings. And in current state, we're entering that realm a little bit with some programs with progressive mobility, looking at when someone's in the hospital, if we keep them moving, what's the benefit there? So it's just a small touch point. And then also I have an athletic training team who's working with patients who have Parkinson's disease to keep them moving, active, healthy. And so understanding the positive impact into healthcare with keeping people connected and as functional as possible. So my hope is to look at those opportunities as healthcare is going to be changing a lot in the next 10 years and see how we can fit traditional healthcare with some new healthcare components with therapy and athletic training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, as we do shift into that value-based care model, those like upstream kind of interventions and preventative measures, like with therapy, will be really like the focus of a lot of, care programs for patients. And I think that it's very, forward thinking that you're focusing on that now with the progressive mobility initiative. So I will take a chat or look at the chat, but if anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask them. And I won't have to, commandeer as much, but anybody is welcome to ask. And if not, I can keep commandeering.
If we wait long enough, Tyler will say something.
That's very true. I do have a a question related. So you mentioned the zero suicide. Was that like the zero suicide grant that was given out? Do you remember? It was. That is interesting because so I work at IU Health, but we have the zero suicide grant right now that's going to run in Bloomington. And I'm curious if they've connected with you since you've done that, or if they've reached out to anyone outside of IU Health. Um, it's just
Yeah.
it's sort of a bizarre, yeah, it's an off kind of base question, but
Yeah.
um
So we
it's
didn't
an
receive the
interesting
grant.
project.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't receive the grant, but we felt like the process matched the mission. And so zero suicide, when you look at that model, is a way that you can sort of run through a template of how to make changes in your healthcare system. So you know that. And when you look at it, at first it's like, oh, we can do that. That's easy, right? It's so hard, but that's how a
Yeah.
lot of change really is.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I'm sure we can probably chat at some point.
Yeah, I may connect you with the program director I've worked with. Just it's curious because you guys did it, but like use that model, so I think it may be a beneficial connection. So it's
Mhm.
just curious. But
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
it's a really cool different experience for you. Yeah, that was just interesting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I was like,
Mhm.
how did I get pulled into this? But it
That
was
and the
really good.
language services was it's like okay. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a
The language service piece of it also kind of, I'm
I was
not sure
like
how that happened.
interesting.
I think someone at one point thought speech therapy, language services, those probably match. They don't.
Mm.
But I have learned a lot also in that process about ADA and law
Mm.
and
Hmm.
and the needs for treating people equally and fairly, and what are the ways to do that through communication assistance.
So we do have a question in the chat, and it is, are there any long-term goals that you haven't mentioned that you are working toward?
So I don't have anything that's like completely specific. So I've always sort of um, led my life at doing the best that I can where I'm at, but putting myself in a position so if something in the future comes up, then that's good. So to be honest, I would be quite content to be in this role until my retirement. But the next step for me, if an opportunity comes up, would be looking at another administrative director position or a VP position in healthcare. With all the changes in healthcare and reorgs, I know that it could be one of those things that happens or doesn't happen. So I'm quite content where I'm at now or for the time being.
That's very fair. I feel like in healthcare, all of the planning in the world kind of can get thrown out the window the next day.
It's
So
very different now. And I think, not to fall back into like how old I am kind of thing, but there was a certain point in time where you could sort of map out where you wanted to go in a leadership path. And as healthcare changes are actively happening, and we're reading about it all the time, where reorganizations are happening, it's a little less predictable. And so setting ourselves up for possibilities, but not just being dead set on a path, I think is the right place and the way to be right now in healthcare, and giving yourself broad experiences so that as things come, so it feels like a good fit, then being ready for that.
yeah, that's wonderful advice. Another question from the chat is, in your career path, did you or do you currently have a mentor? And if so, how has that impacted and benefited your career?
So I have a few different mentors in current state. So it depends on what the situation is. I would say I have had a couple of mentors that led me up to this point. One was a former director of mine that she really was a mentor in how to balance the work need and the personal employee need. And so she was really great at being direct but firm, kind, and looking at being flexible in the ways that she could and showing care and kindness. And so I remember at that time of being the employee really wanting to work harder because the work expectation was very clear, but the presentation was kind. And she's still a mentor to me, and I keep in touch with her about leadership skills and just the best way to the people skills, essentially. And then another mentor is someone in our sister. Her name is Sister Petra, and she helped me understand that we can't be all things to all people. And so when you first start in leadership roles, you just kind of want to go gung ho and do everything for everyone. And one, you'll burn yourself out. But as an organization or as a department, you can't do that either. So you really have to look at what are you good at? What resources do you have? And then do the best good with what those resources are and allow someone else to fill in the gaps for the other things. And so for me, that was a really good mentoring lesson of kind of knowing where those skill sets are and matching with the opportunities.
And that wonderful. I love to hear several mentors as well, because I think, different roles for different mentors are kind of necessary if you want to grow in more than one area in your career.
Right.
Another question is, what are some of the main challenges that you see in healthcare now, and how does that impact the future of our industry? It's a good question.
It is a good question. So I would say, from my perspective, one of the challenges in healthcare is how to balance the employee, the recruiting, the retaining perspective, along with being able to sustain and grow business. So as we look at the wages for employees and how to pay fair wage, along with keeping expenses down and working through the balance of expense and value, and how to balance all of those components. And I think that that's going to continue to be more challenging as we look at value-based care and the future of healthcare. So for all of us as leaders, it means really looking at what are the things that we can become more efficient at, what are the things that bring value to us, and what is worth the cost. And so looking at things from that perspective. And I think we'll always have to do that. And then adding the creativity of, are there different ways to do things? So from a therapy service perspective, thinking about virtual health and how to incorporate that in a way that's efficient and safe and still producing good quality outcomes too.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting, especially as, I mean, my idea of physical therapy is somebody sitting there with you, showing you how to move your arm or any given thing. So the ability to do that virtually is definitely new and will be interesting to see.
I agree. And when we started with COVID and we had to really make the decisions about face to face care versus no care at all versus virtual care, it really forced this creative approach to, yes, there are times that having your hands on someone or being right next to the person is best. But there are cases where you can see what's happening and you can make decisions based on the patient's feedback or the visuals that you see. And so the challenge for me as a clinician into a leadership role was, okay, a lot of us had to take some sort of exam for licensure, certification, and we were making decisions based on pen and paper, not based on what we were touching or seeing. So there's some capacity to be able to make decisions that way. So looking at how can we do some of that virtually too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just now looked at the time and realized our half hour is up, but thank you so much, Shannon, for being a part of our discussion today. I found it very helpful and informative, and I'm hoping that other early careerists and people who joined will think so as well. Tyler, do you have anything else to say to wrap us up?
I'm really appreciative, Shannon. This was a lot of great advice. Really appreciate it. Just as like a heads up, this whole thing was kind of recorded, so once that recording's kind of put together, we'll put it out there and really I really want to push it to a lot of our early careers because there's a lot of really great advice. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
And Katie did a great job, obviously. So it's
Yes,
like,
Katie, you
yeah,
did.
she did great. But
Great.
no, I don't have anything else. I think we're good to wrap up.
Well, thank you. It was fun to
Yeah.
talk to
Yeah.
everyone. It was a good experience.
Of course, and
Yeah.
good luck skiing this weekend.
Thank you.
Yes. Good luck.
Thank you. I'll report back if I'm injured or not.
Yes. Keeping you in our thoughts for
Thank
safety
you.
concerns.
Have a
Yes.
great Friday and a good weekend.
Yes. You too.
All
All
right.
Bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.